reported a cyber attack on its email publication servers. Well, this after WikiLeaks published the latest trove of DNC emails. The outage lasted only for a few minutes. The sites were back online soon after. You may remember several other popular websites were taken down in a similar attack just last month. And Philadelphia's transit strike that we've been telling you about is now over. Union workers reaching a tentative agreement with the transit authority. Buses and trains are now expected to be back up and running within the next 24 hours to help get voters to the polls. The union still needs to sign off on the deal. We thought that might happen just in time for the election. Brian?
Okay, thanks a lot, Heather. Hillary Clinton off the hook, it seems, once again. In a bombshell announcement yesterday, FBI Director James Comey writes this letter, quote, "Since my letter, the FBI investigative team have been working around the clock to process and review a large volume of emails." He wouldn't say 650,000. "Based on our review, we have not changed our conclusion. But will voters let her off the hook?" Let's ask our political panel right now. GOP strategist Phil Stutz is here. Tez Figaro is here. She's an independent and former Sanders supporter. And Marcy Stech is here, the VP of the Democratic group, Emily's List. Marcy, is this now put the wind back in Hillary's sails?
Well, it certainly takes the wind out of Donald Trump's sails. I mean, the bottom line, and this was the base of his entire last week on the campaign trail. He was giving voters nothing to vote for. All he was doing was talking about Hillary Clinton and emails, Hillary Clinton emails. The case has been closed. You know, we know the same thing that we know back in July, that, you know, questions have been asked and answered. And I think 24 hours before the polls open in these critical key states, this is not a good look for Donald Trump. He's got to figure out something new in the next 24 hours.
What Marcy's saying is now without merit, but you could also say, too, that shows a judgment. So an accused pedophile, Congressman Weiner, gets access to this. Does that play to the judgment call?
Well, it may play to the judgment call. I actually think it's a reverse effect, just to look at this a little differently. I think in states like Michigan and Pennsylvania that are election day, voting, whereas opposed to Florida and North Carolina, it's kind of, the cake is kind of already baked, that this could have a negative effect on Hillary. Think about it this way: how angry the voters are that support Trump in these states that the charges weren't brought against her, that the case is now closed.
So they're more motivated.
I think they could be more motivated.
Very interesting. Tez, your thoughts about this coming out? I know you got to be somewhat taken aback because now all these emails, these WikiLeaks stuff come out, and your candidate never really had a shot to begin with.
Right. I mean, you're not really taken aback because we've seen it firsthand. The WikiLeaks has given us an opportunity, to show America what we've been talking about year over year. And I would say, just to respectfully disagree, that the case is not closed. On Wednesday is going to determine if Hillary Clinton wins. She's going to have a hard 4 years because people are going to continue to expose. They're going to continue to talk about the emails. They're going to continue to talk about the WikiLeaks, and she will have a hard time governing. So it's not over. It's nothing to see here. Let's just move on and go to the election. It's actually going to start a bigger movement on Wednesday.
Yeah, you're right, because the Republicans will keep the House, and you better believe there are going to be a lot of investigations over the next 4 years. And frankly, I think it's one of the things that if Hillary would win, that would unify the Republican Party, because now we have a common person that we can put our energy behind.
And more angst.
Well, we have seen this political witch hunt go after Hillary Clinton for now decades, right? Whether it's on her honest and trustworthy, we've seen it now ever since she was in the political sphere. I think the idea of using taxpayer dollars to fund an apparatus to take her down as president of the United States is going to be a losing strategy for Republicans.
Then get ready for another 4 years. She'll be good and practiced and ready to go for another 4 years.
There's something there.
This is about priorities.
I mean, listen,
and the people's priority is to continue to monitor Hillary.
The foundation is still being investigated too, Brian. The foundation is still being investigated.
It's ongoing. Marcy, just real quick, I think you're right. It would be cause a lot of angst for this investigation to continue. But isn't this all self-inflicted? If the foundation didn't have some dicey relationships, if she didn't choose the private server, there would be nothing to really go after.
Well, look, she has had a long and storied career of doing what she does best, which is to fight for children, to fight for families, and to do that through the foundation. You want to know
she does best.
I think the conversation that we are having right now is not the conversation that voters are having as they are deciding who to vote for.
Actually, they are.
I see internal polling. Trust me, that's the conversation. It's between unlawful.
Let's talk.
Welcome to Thanksgiving in America in 2016. Thanks so much. Great conversation. just tapping the surface. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, Donald Trump has never met Russian President Vladimir Putin. But Democrats aren't going to let facts get in the way of a good attack line. Up next, the DNC's unbelievable plan to smear the Republican nominee. And he hasn't been smeared yet, so this is going to be new. And she was hired to do the laundry, clean the kitchen, and print out details of drone strikes in Pakistan. Yep, the brand new jaw-dropping details on Hillary's maid when Tucker Carlson joins us next. By the way, he's got a 7 o'clock show at night. He gets to sleep soon.
And they all lived happily ever after.
Not!
Crazy stuff.
That was from Saturday Night Live,
You know what,
obviously.
that opening animation, one day.
I know.
It was so jaw-dropping to see, one day.
Unbelievable.
Brand new DNC email from WikiLeaks revealing a sinister strategy to take down Donald Trump.
The Democratic Party conspiring to paint the Republican nominee as a sexual predator and a friend of Vladimir Putin.
I'm glad that didn't come to fruition. Kristen Fisher has been poring over the latest WikiLeaks release and joins us right now from Washington, D.C. with the latest. Kristen, as explosive as we've seen so far.
Yeah, so far what we're finding is a lot of what you might expect to find in the inboxes of DNC staffers in the middle of a heated election year. They're trying to come up with ways to take down Donald Trump. For instance, in one email from April of this year, some DNC staffers are discussing an article about a former foreign policy advisor to Rand Paul, a man by the name of Dimitri Sims, who allegedly had ties to the Russian government. Well, one DNC staffer writes, "We don't have a ton on Sims, but the pro-Russia stuff ties in pretty well to the idea that Trump is too friendly with Putin, weak on Russia." And that, of course, as we all know, has become a central theme of the Clinton campaign, that Trump is simply Putin's puppet. Now, another email appears to show several DNC staffers discussing whether or not to post a fake Craigslist ad for a job with the Trump organization. Now, it's clearly a joke. It essentially says that all female applicants must be attractive. But ultimately, according to WikiLeaks, they didn't post it because, quote, "the defamation risk here is too high. I know we are going for a parody, but given the content of the post, his private business practices, sexual harassment, etc., we would open ourselves up to a defamation suit if we posted." Now, so far, the DNC has not commented about this latest leak. The second one this election cycle, don't forget. But Clinton's communications director did post this yesterday on Twitter. Quote, "Friends, please remember that if you see a whopper of a WikiLeaks in the next 2 days, it's probably fake." So there is certainly a chance that some of these emails could be made up by WikiLeaks. But then again, their first leak of DNC emails led to the ouster of former DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So WikiLeaks certainly has a track record of being accurate and for causing serious repercussions. Brian Ainsley and Steve.
You're right about both. All right, Kristen, thank you very much. Look who's here. It's the new host of the 7 p.m. show. Starts a week from today right here on the Fox News channel.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Wayne.
Do you have a title for the show yet?
I think that's 11:30 meeting this morning.
Okay.
There are lots of ideas.
I watched you over the weekend and saying goodbye to everyone, and they played this clip of all of his segments, and at the end they come back to him, and I thought you were going to say something like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to miss you," which you eventually did, but you said, "I realize how humiliating this job is."
It's so good for your soul. It really is. It's so important to be reduced to your basic self, once in a while. Take it down a little bit.
Because oftentimes we do some silly things. We put on hats, we eat things.
It is so good for you to eat kielbasa on TV. You know what I mean?
Right. I look forward to the format of the new show. If you'll put more cooking segments instead.
Right.
Because Britt, you wanted to do cooking, got big pushback in D.C.
Cooking segments rate really well in prime time.
I know they
Cooking in the
We'll
Capitol.
see.
Well, you know what? Speaking of cooking, let's talk a little bit about a housekeeper.
Yes.
Marina Santos is the housekeeper for Hillary Clinton, and it has been revealed, apparently, and these are from the State Department emails that were released on Friday night, about 1,000 documents. Apparently, she was in charge of printing out all sorts of classified information to Hillary Clinton, and then, according to some of the documents, the instruction was just leave them on the bench. So she would print out something classified, leave it on the bench, out in public view. If the cable guy stopped by, he could eyeball it. If somebody, one of the neighbor kids stopped by and it was all right there.
Well, we already know that Hillary paid no attention to security protocols, which is why she put all this classified information on an unsecured server. But this just kind of sums it up perfectly in one story, really. Getting your housekeeper to do it. I mean, this series of emails confirms every bad suspicion you ever had about the attitudes of people in power, specifically the Clintons, but not just the Clintons. Kind of everybody who's been in Washington a long time and gotten rich being there, all have this entitlement attitude that is so corrosive of good government. I mean, it really is like the late Ottoman Empire. Have my housekeeper do it. I mean, it's so decadent, actually.
Right, and a lot of people run on the Ottoman Empire ticket and they're not successful.
And look what happened to the Ottoman Empire.
And it eventually would break up, but don't give it away. Tucker, here's the thing. People get caught up as a criminal, is it prosecutable? No, it's not a matter. Just look at this. Just keep it simple for us non-lawyers. Is judgment. If you're looking to hire somebody for the most important job in the country, how did they do in their last job? What judgment did they have? And that's what you decide when you pull the curtain back in the booth.
I have power, you don't. I'm rich, you're not. I'm famous, you never will be. I'm going to do exactly what I want, even while holding you to laws that, penalize you for breaking them. I mean, this is the attitude that people are rebelling against. We'll see if they're successful or not, but in this election, they don't like that. And why would they? It's supposed to be a democracy. We're all equal under the law, and this reveals an attitude very different from that.
But Tucker, her husband says she deserves it.
Well,
in a transcript. Let me, just in case the audience is not familiar with this story, in a transcript, he says she deserves this. This was a speech she had to give, and she will not disappoint you. But to get there, we have to not disappoint her. So it's about the voter not disappointing her instead of her disappointing.
Well, that's our main job. It's not, can I just say this? I can't control myself. I always go coach on the train, back to Washington, New York. I went first class yesterday. It was full of journalists, the car. And I thought to myself, this is why they're all totally for Hillary, because they so completely have absorbed the attitudes of the ruling class in Washington. They so strongly identify with people in power that, of course, they're for Hillary. Everybody in that world has the same attitude, which is, shut up, dumb people, obey.
Yeah, so you didn't take the Trump train? You took the...
No, I didn't. And I mean, but I was like, because I ride this train every week, and I never, I never see anybody I know. They're all in the first class car. They're journalists. No wonder they're totally for Hillary.
Well, plus, everybody knows you now that you have your own show. They're like, hey, there's Tucker. Meanwhile, they were walking right by you last week.
I sat alone.
The attitude you described, though, is why there's this what Donald Trump calls a movement in the country where people are just hacked off about what goes on in Washington, D.C.
Of course they are.
They want to pull the plug on it.
But this is the attitude that abets corruption, that this doesn't apply to me. Like, I'm above that.
I got to get you something. You used to work at CNN for years. Are you surprised that they were soliciting questions from the DNC?
I am surprised. That's crossing
Wolf Blitzer to what asked to Donald Trump?
It's crossing a bright line. Asking a political party for questions for their opponent?
To ask Donald
kidding?
Trump?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's beyond belief. And I have to say, news organizations, not just CNN, but especially CNN, are very bad at policing themselves. They set themselves, we're the watchdog, keeping an eye on those in power, but who's keeping an eye on them? Nobody. If they don't do a deep forensic dive on how this happened and how it won't happen again, then that's corruption.
All right. Well, Tucker is moving on up to 7 p.m. and to first class, apparently.
No, that was the last time. I don't want to ride with journalists.
Next time you get to drive the train. All right, Tucker, thank you.
I'm sure you entertained them all and had free drinks.
All right, still ahead on this Monday. Florida is do or die for Donald Trump, and the campaign is leaving no stone unturned.
This movement is coming together. Florida is coming together. America's coming together. We're going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America.
So how close is it the day before the election? We're live in the critical battleground state with the latest numbers coming up next.
And a brand new WikiLeaks bombshell. Did the Clinton Foundation fund Chelsea Clinton's wedding and living expenses for a decade? We have a live report on that.
She does have a $10 million apartment. Who paid for that?
Good morning. Welcome back to Fox and Friends. 15 minutes before the hour now, starting with a Fox News alert. A sheriff's deputy killed and another one clinging to life this morning after a dispute between neighbors turns deadly. The Georgia deputies responding to a complaint in the town of Byron. Two people say a neighbor threatened them with a gun for riding a four-wheeler and a motorcycle up and down the block. When deputies arrived, the suspects started shooting at them. Sergeant Patrick Sondren died from his injuries. The other deputy is in critical condition this morning. We'll keep you posted on any updates. Former felons may decide who wins Virginia in tomorrow's election. Since July, the Democrat Governor Terry McAuliffe has restored voting rights to more than 67,000 former inmates. 21,000 of them registered and could turn out at polling stations tomorrow. We'll keep an eye on that story as well. Ainsley?
Just hours until the presidential election, and once again, Florida is taking center stage.
Yep, the Sunshine State all tied up and heading for what could be a photo finish.
Yeah, tied at 45-45. Phil Keating live in Hialeah, Florida, breaking down why Florida is so crucial for both candidates. Hey, Phil.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Once again, Florida, the biggest prize of the battleground states, the largest of the swing toss-up states. And again, just like 4 years ago at this point, we headed to Election Day in absolute dead heat. Take a look at the latest CBS polling data. A 45% to 45% Clinton and Trump tie, meaning it's going to come down to in-person voter turnout tomorrow on Election Day. Now, on Sunday in Florida, the final day of early voting, on behalf of the Clinton campaign, President Obama rallied heavily Hispanic Kissimmee, Florida. Meanwhile, Trump running mate Governor Mike Pence visited reliably Republican Panama City.
This movement is coming together. Florida is coming together. America's coming together. We're going to make Donald Trump next president of the United States of America.
If we win Florida, it's a wrap. We win Florida, it's over.
Democratic strongholds Miami-Dade County and Broward County, the two most populous counties in the state of Florida, saw historically high early voter turnout yesterday on Sunday, never before seen for early voting. Meanwhile, today we will have on the trail in Florida Vice President Joe Biden up in the Democratic oasis in the panhandle of Tallahassee, then down to St. Petersburg for a Get Out the Vote concert with Jimmy Buffett. Meanwhile, Donald Trump himself will rally in Sarasota, Florida. And for Donald Trump, this will be his 6th in-person visit in the Sunshine State in the past 2 weeks. Back to you.
And of course, he also has a house down there in Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, and he knows how important that state is.
I'm very curious to see what the Fox poll says, because the Fox poll comes out, our final poll comes out today to see where Florida is really at.
6 p.m., tune in to Special Report. Meantime, a dozen minutes before the top of the hour on this Monday, how will the Trump campaign respond now that Hillary Clinton is not in trouble with the FBI? Again, Trump Deputy Campaign Manager David Bossie here to react, coming up in 12 minutes.
I wonder if he's going to have that beard. And a brand new WikiLeaks bombshell. Did the Clinton Foundation fund Chelsea's wedding and living expenses for a decade? Pete Hegseth says that's 100% illegal. He's live next.
Well, the email were about the wedding.
Wow. 1 day to go until Election Day, and the WikiLeaks bombshells still going on. The latest revealing that the Clinton Foundation helped pay for Chelsea Clinton's wedding and other living expenses. Pete Hegseth is a Fox News contributor who has also run charities and foundations, and he is here to react. You ran foundations that were also 501c3s,
yes.
tax-exempt foundations.
Charities.
Now, how can the Clinton Foundation, how can they legally use money to pay for their daughter's wedding?
I mean, they're not supposed to. They can't, they shouldn't, but they did. And it's based on basic ethics. So I've run 501c3 charities, veterans organizations, and the money that you get is given by donors who trust in good faith you will use it for the mission you said you would, which is what you told the IRS as well. I had to fire an employee once who was buying personal items on the credit card for the 501c3. We found out how much it was, fired him on the spot, and he paid it all back. Because you have a responsibility to your donors and to the mission of that organization. Clearly, because this was run more like a political clearinghouse than a foundation, it was just a slush fund for them to do whatever they wanted to do.
All right, so for the folks at home, if you're asking, how do you know this is happening? Well, there's an email in the WikiLeaks that was Doug Bann, who runs the foundation, he sent this email to John Podesta, who is currently running Hillary Clinton's campaign. It says the investigation into her getting paid for campaigning, meaning Chelsea Clinton, using foundation resources for her wedding and life for a decade, taxes on money from her parents. I hope that you will speak to her and end this once we go down.